And with that one Shaktipat, like that energy was just lifted. And I had this beautiful experience of divine energy.
Welcome to the Supernatural Souls podcast. I'm Jenna, your host. I'm also a former global vice president for Whole Foods Market and the founder of Star Family Wisdom, a modern-day mystery school for your spiritual and cosmic evolution. On this podcast, we explore the lives, teachings, and energies of a very specific group of supernatural souls. In this group, we include Jesus Christ and Mother Mary from the Christian tradition, and also Saint Sri Kaleshwar and Shirdi Sai Baba from India. Here we discover a body of knowledge and wisdom that transcends religion, uniting the East and West. Together we'll discuss the practices that were once employed by these ancient masters to embody the high supernatural abilities that were once considered magic. And we'll welcome the energy, love, and wisdom of these supernatural souls into our lives. So as we explore the lives and wisdom of these supernatural souls and their students, may we all remember ourselves as supernatural souls and embody the wisdom and teachings of the many masters who have walked before us. Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. It's so good to be here with you today. Today we are talking to Mia Bonenken. Mia is our first Divine Lineage student guest on the podcast from Germany. So I'm very, very excited to be making that connection across the globe and hearing from one of our Germany Psi family today. Shout out to all of our Germany Psi family. We have a huge contingent of Psi family in Germany. And it actually was something that came up at the ashram last year at Guru Purnima. Someone was talking about the German contingent and just how incredibly powerful the divine lineage energy is in Germany now. And I have German ancestry. So I feel a deep connection to Germany and to our Germany Psi family. And for those who don't know, for those who are maybe new to the lineage, welcome. Swami Sri Kaleshwar actually talked about his work in Germany as part of our healing process from the war that happened, and part of the work that he did on the planet to help bring that healing to the places that need it. So I think it's so beautiful. We have so many beautiful German Psi family working in these processes. And today, Mia and I talk about the process of block washing. And we wanted to specifically talk about this for the purpose of just highlighting what it's like. And for those who are new to the divine lineage, we wanted to highlight and share an important PSA and reminder. This actually came to Mia in a meditation, and we talked about it after the podcast. And so we wanted to make sure to share this with you. If you're brand new to the lineage, if you are just getting started in identifying some of the mantra systems that you want to work with, it's really important to make sure you're connected with someone who is experienced in the channels, a teacher, maybe someone who studied directly with Swami Sri Kaleshwar, because we talk about how intense these processes get. And Mia shares some of her own personal experience as a young human, a wise old soul, but in a young human body, kind of like me, and what that's like, when we start to face all of the trauma and blocks and limiting beliefs that we take on when we come into the human experience. And so because of how intense that process can be, it's really helpful, it's really important to work with someone. And there are certain dikshas in place for a lot of the mantra systems. A diksha is just like a guideline, a rule, a protocol, and that's for your safety. We are in this lineage focused on power. We're focused on devotion and power. There are many different yoga lineages on the planet, and many of them are devotional lineages focused on being in devotion to the divine. This lineage is also focused on that, but also helping us understand how to embody our power as God, how to be a divine channel for God, how to be a divine agent for God, for the divine. And as we are on that journey, it can become a very, very intense process of learning how energies function and work in this physical reality, and how we need to build protection, energetic protection around ourselves as we are acquiring power, how we need to understand these dikshas that might be in place for various mantras so that we're not accidentally inviting energies we can't handle yet. So it's really important that we're just aware of that as we start these processes, and that we find a guide to help us along in that process. And on the Star Family Wisdom website, we have a couple of pages that are dedicated to listing a lot of different divine lineage resources and teachers for you, so that you can find all the people who are out there working in these processes, all of the teachers who maybe are certified to teach various aspects of the processes, and then guides and other resources that might be helpful for you. So check that out. There's a link below. Also in this episode, we talk about a beautiful piece of art that is on Mia's altar. And Mia got in touch with the woman who designed this piece. She is also part of the Sai family. And we have a link below to her information, so you can check out more if that piece resonates with you. It's so beautiful to see the divine creativity coming through the Sai family in this way. So without further ado, we'll get into the episode and talk to Mia. I'll see you on the other side. Welcome, Mia. It's so good to have you here. I'm just so thrilled to connect with you and chat and learn about your journey. Welcome.
Thank you for having me here. I'm so happy to be here.
You're our first guest from Europe, from Germany. So
Really?
yeah,
Yes, Germany represent.
exactly. It's exciting to bridge across the continents and start to make that connection. So I'm really excited about that.
Oh,
Yeah. And we met at the ashram last year. We met in July at Guru Purnima, and I got to learn a little bit about your journey. You are a young student, and by young, I mean that in two ways. Mia both has been on this journey for a number of years now, but is in her 20s, and did not meet Swami Sri Kaleshwar in person like me. So I'm like you, I'm of the generation that did not get to meet Swami. So I want to start by just asking you about your origin story, and how did you find the lineage at such a young age? Obviously, you're a wise soul, but how did that start, and how did that journey lead you to the lineage?
well, first of all, thank you for having me. So I think I was thinking about that today, and I think sometimes we need to be in like a very in the dark to recognize a light. And I feel like I had very much that kind of story, just like many, I think, of us did. For me, it was kind of continuing with what you and Chris were talking about last time. Also, substance abuse, just being in a very kind of personal, dark place. And something that's very interesting is that right before I met my teacher, who then kind of initiated me into the lineage, I was like 1 week super dark, just like feeling like a black energy on top of me. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't like get up and do anything. Like I would just lay in bed for 1 week.
Mm.
And that's kind of then how I, through a friend, knew that her mom was a healer. So I asked her if she could do a healing on me because I was kind of lost. I was like, I can't do anything. I feel this energy on top of me and I really don't know what to do. So she is a Swami student and she gave me a Shakti pad.
Ah.
And with that one Shakti pad, like that energy was just lifted. And I had this beautiful experience of divine energy.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, but I think sometimes you need to be very much in the dark to even recognize the light. So
Yeah.
I think that was I think that was Swami pushing me a little bit more over the edge for me to be able to see him and the mother.
Oh, Oh wow. And for those who might be new to this lineage or this conversation, what is Shaktipat? Describe that experience.
So basically, it's someone who has channels, who puts his thumb, that's how it was. Well, I think you can do it many different ways, but that's how it was in this instant for me, on energy centers. So it was a third eye, it was a heart chakra, and the womb, and then doing their channelings. And then you're kind of channeling the divine energy.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
soul to soul.
Beautiful that you got that transmission in that moment. And um, I think that's a great just thing to reflect on and maybe remind people, it's like we need help sometimes, we need help to shift energy and get some of that negative energy moved out of our system. And receiving that sort of transmission from someone can be so helpful. Um, you talked about how, when we talked last time, you talked about how you then started studying with the teacher who it started initiating you into the lineage. What was that process like for you? Like, where did you start?
Well, the first thing that I did is I bought every book on the market that was from Swami or from a student who was with Swami. And I just like sometimes read one book in a day. Like I would just read all of it and like cry the whole time and just feel so connected to that soul, but also be like, what is happening? But also,
Right.
oh my God, I love this. Yeah. I just wanted to know everything of like, where is this energy coming from? Okay, I felt it, but where is it coming from? So I think that was majorly where I don't want like the connection with mommy was there obviously before, but how I could access that again.
Yeah.
Um, and then I have a beautiful, like she's still my teacher, and we did weekly satsangs, which was so helpful for me because I started doing the processes, right? The five elements and everything, and life got pretty turbulent. And just having the Satya knowledge with that, I felt like was so crucial to my process to understand what was going on because suddenly my blocks just came up and about. So yeah.
So, okay, so you just described um, that that trigger that happens, like when we start engaging these like more advanced spiritual
Mm.
processes and these power channels that connect us to divine energies. You talked about how like boom, all your blocks came up. What do you mean by that? Like, what was that like? Like just uncovering those parts of yourself that were ready to transform.
I think, I mean, look, like as a normal living human, we know we get triggered sometimes, like stuff happens, but I feel like once you start engaging with the channels, it's like oil, a little bit of oil on the fire, or a lot of oil on the
Yeah.
fire. So I felt like, oh, I was just having, for me, it was like anger, feeling betrayed, feeling unloved, like that all came up. And I think normally I would have blamed the other person because the illusions will play a perfect story for you where in your mind you can be like, oh, but it's this person, like she should be there for me, or whatever your own individual story is, right? But then through us having weekly satsangs and kind of learning, hey, what happens when you start engaging with these processes and actually the outside is showing you something that is happening on the inside. That really helped me to be like, oh wait, maybe it's not that person. Maybe she's a beautiful, beautiful soul trying to help me here, trying to recognize something.
Mm. Such a beautiful shift of perspective when that
Yeah.
happens. Yeah. I think too, it's like you I love your analogy of pouring oil on the fire, because yeah, like I experienced that too. And I think we kind of
Mhm.
underestimate, how much stuff that we're carrying, and it's not all ours personally. A lot of it's collective trauma and just negative programming from society, and there's just so many layers of that have been suppressed, that we have to find and work through. And I think this is a beautiful kind of like I guess just words of caution, for folks who are starting the processes or the channels to just be aware, of how, it really does kind of bring to the surface everything, to be dealt
Yeah.
with. And that can happen all at once, or you can pace it gently over a period of time. It sounds like you kind of went all in, like you just went for it, and kind of took the more bold approach to getting your blocks washed. Is that kind of how you would think of it?
100%. Like me and my teacher, we would sometimes like laugh. Like you have to take it with humor because
Yeah.
sometimes we would have satsangs and I would just cry every satsang because I was so triggered or whatever. Like nothing really happened,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
would just cry. But we just at some point laugh. We were like, "Yep, if I have to put my camera off for a while, we know what's happening, and it's
Yeah.
okay."
Oh, I
But yeah,
That's so beautiful. You had that community to be able to just like be real with, and like just let it out. That's so cool.
yeah, and it was yeah, it was all women at that time and they were all mothers and I was like the young one with my other friend and so it was also a very like nurturing space, I think.
Oh.
So that was really nice personally for me.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good. That's good. That's another good, I think, recommendation for everyone. Like we need to have that nurturing space with others, or
Yeah.
with a teacher, or some form of community, which I think most people are finding in the divine lineage. But yeah, going through those block washing processes, it can get intense, the emotions that come up and the things that you need to feel, to move through it. How long did that go on for you? Like, what was the kind of time period of the process?
I mean, it's never ending, right? I think it's a lifelong process. The intense one, I want to say like 2 years, maybe 1 or 2 years. But yeah, it goes in waves. I don't want to say that it's not intense anymore. I feel like it's just different levels. And I think the thing is like the paradigm shift. What you were also saying and now kind of alluding to is you start interacting with the world differently. Like you start to see a Swami or a Baba or whoever you feel connected to in that other person. And at some point almost smiling, being like, oh yeah, you're right. This really hits me right now. But it's just, I don't know. I think that paradigm shift is really important to also take it a little bit more lightly. Take it sporty, how Sami would say.
Yes, I love that. I love that. I love that idea too, of seeing the divine in others, like seeing Swami,
Mm,
seeing Baba, seeing Mother in others, and that's like one of those moments of starting to see through the illusion. Like you're just seeing through the illusion of reality in that moment,
yeah.
which is so cool. Have you had other experiences like that?
Um, you mean related to, well, I have one pretty good example actually with the block washing. What I would like, I was thinking about sharing that one
Sure,
if
go
you,
for it. Yeah.
yeah. I got like these little lingams. It was very small lingams. You could have it like as a necklace or something. And I had, I think, five of them. So I brought one to my teacher, and well, we were like this whole group, and we did a puja. And I told my friend there, well, I have a lot of them. If you want, I can give you one of these days. But I have my personal one with me that day. And so we did the puja. I kind of left it inside. We went outside of the puja. I came back a few days later and then we had a satsang all together. And then my teacher was kind of like, oh my God, you can't believe it. The next day after the puja, I went to kind of collect duni ash for the paste and everything that you do with the ash afterwards. And I found your lingam in the duni, and the ash was still warm. So it was the day after the puja, ash was still warm, but the lingam was in the duni and nothing happened to it. Like, oh my God, what a miracle. And I was like, oh my God, so this is like a fully blessed object now. Wow, it was like in the duni when we did the puja. And then kind of we were starting the satsang, and then I started to realize, oh my God, I think they think this is theirs now because I announced that they can have one.
Oh.
So suddenly I feel this energy
Mm.
just like hit me. I could really feel it from outside hit me, and I was in rage. Like, you know how sometimes you have these comics where people have fume coming up? Yep, that was me.
Oh
I
boy.
was, yes, I was sitting there, but it was a perfect illusion because I couldn't leave. Because we just started the satsang, the class basically. Also, I couldn't say anything because they were starting to talk about different stuff, and I was just sitting there in my emotion. And then a few minutes in, I was thinking like, oh my God, this is an illusion. Like this is a full illusion. So I started to connect to Swami and be like, Swami, can you please take this anger in me? And I started to do his Mahasamadhi mantra. And suddenly I felt this anger just like going away.
Oh,
And then I was just like, oh my God. And then after the satsang, I was sitting down with my friend and we kind of had this moment. She had to leave like a few minutes later, but we had this moment together where I knew this could be a moment where I could address this. But then in my heart, I was like, no, because I know that this was an illusion. And you know what? If they're supposed to have that power object, then they're supposed to have that, and then it's not mine. Like, I really want to trust Swami that that's the right thing. And in that moment where I decided I'm not even gonna address it right now, I got another wave of just like love and like whatever blessing came with that. And then like months later, I had told her, but then like with a very different energy of just like, wow, that was an amazing teaching for me.
yeah.
Um,
Wow. Wow. There's so much in that like one story. Like this idea of surrender. Like you
mm,
surrendered to what was happening. You didn't like make it personal, like at first it was, at first all those emotions were
yeah,
coming up, but then you relaxed into realizing that like taking that like really personally wasn't going to help anything, like it wasn't going to
mm,
resolve anything. Like I love how you just turned that over to the divine. You just turned
yeah,
it over to Swami and trusted that if it was meant to be yours, it'd be yours. If it's not, it's not. And I think that is incredible. Like that is an incredible moment of like lucidity, of wisdom, when you're in an illusion like that, because sometimes those illusions are like really strong. Like sometimes
super
it takes
strong.
a
Yeah.
while to figure out, like where you need to go with it or how to resolve it. And I'm just so impressed with you and your ability to do that in that moment. I think that's really beautiful. Really
That
beautiful.
was a strong teaching, and obviously I can't, like there are moments where I don't, like this
Yeah.
shouldn't be like I always do this. I would love to, but
Yeah.
I'm still human sometimes,
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, there's so many layers in that story too, because also like power objects,
Mhm.
the pull of power objects, and also, I think there's also a lot of soul stuff happening in that
Oh
moment,
yeah.
just like I want that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Many,
Yeah.
many layers happening there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so interesting to think about that. Like that story alone is an incredible teaching for everyone watching this. I think that's so
Mm.
amazing. Um, I want to also just talk a little bit about your connection with Swami and what it's been like for you being on this journey and having a master who's not in a body on earth, and knowing you've got this connection, being guided by the Guru Parampara, and just like what that's been like for you, because that's a different experience than some Swami students have had, since they got to interact with him physically. So what's that been like for you?
That has been very interesting. It has evolved over time, but I think around the first 2 years or maybe three, like it has been very difficult for me. Like I would regularly cry over it and just have that illusion around me of like, oh, I just want to, I don't know, see him and sit at his feet or whatever, whatever that feeling is. And I think, like, I've heard from many students talking about also the illusion about being the master in physical form, right? Like, it's not just all roses and everything. There is a lot of illusion happening there. And obviously, him not being able to interact with everyone one on one or anything that also not needed to necessarily to be. But it was still a very hard concept for me. Like, I really was clinging to that kind of heartbreak that I felt of just missing him. And I think one part it's okay because he was also talking about how he was sometimes sad about Baba not being in the body, like his master. So I think it's also maybe part of it in a way. But last year when I was in Penuconda, a very beautiful student, she who met him once, we were having dinner together, and I think I kind of said something along the lines of, oh, it's so amazing how you got to see him. And I think she could really sense that in me, that heartbreak. And she would just sit there and look at me, and she would say things that people have said to me before, but I could just feel him so strongly in that moment. And she was just saying, like, Mia, with some people, he didn't need to go through the physical body. Like, he can just go directly to consciousness, directly to your soul. And you hear him all the time. And I was like, yes, that's true. I hear him answering to what I'm saying or things like that. And she was like, exactly. And that is the connection. The physical body is an illusion. And I think in that moment, there was such a huge transmission where I, the first time, fully understood it. And I was like just crying, sitting there, and I was like, yeah, you're
Oh.
right. Uh, yeah, but yeah, it's been a journey, and I
Oh,
think, yeah.
I love
How
that.
was that for you?
Thank you for sharing that. I've had a similar experience.
Mm.
I'm really glad you shared that because I think, for people who are finding the lineage now, they're probably going to have a similar experience because a lot of us, we've got really deep soul bonds with Swami and
Yeah.
Baba, and they go back a long time, and it can be weird at first, having this experience of feeling this deep connection with a being, a soul who's not in a body, and I had that same kind of grief process almost of
Hmm.
like having these waves of sadness and these waves of I miss you, and like almost these feelings of like, oh, it's not fair, that we didn't get to see you in person, and but also like as those emotions like moved through, then it just became easier to like, I guess what you talked about, acknowledge we don't need the body, like we really don't, and I've also had a lot of other experiences of connecting with um guides and beings and intelligences that aren't here on earth in a body, and I think it's, yeah, it's this big learning process of like allowing that and remembering to develop that relationship still, even though someone's not here in a body, because that relationship is so alive and
It's
so,
so alive, yeah.
yeah, so potent, and and yeah, it was startling at first, when I started feeling those emotions, and and I remember having this moment of like, oh my gosh, is this real? Like, what is happening here?
Am I sane?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think yeah, I bet that's normal for a lot of people who didn't get to meet him.
I think so, but I think like I do want to stress again, I think there's so much illusion around the body. So I think we get to spare so much illusion around that, right? Like thinking how a saint behaves and then he would behave maybe a different way to break that belief system in us. But also he was a human. Like what I've read, and I've read a lot, like I said, that was like a lot of the things that people dealt with
Yeah.
being around him or not getting the attention that they wanted. Oh my God, I think the list is endless of what happened around him. So I think it's also a huge blessing to have that connection with him without the
Yeah.
body. It's so powerful.
Yeah.
But yeah, both is powerful. I don't want to.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been cool hearing from students who had the experience with him in the body, and hearing about how, he would talk about, when he left his body, it would change and the energy would be even more powerful and the connection would be even more powerful, and people have been able to speak to that. People have been able to say, yeah, that's true. That's been my experience, which is really cool. And it also seems like we're just at this point of human evolution, where we, and I think especially the younger generations are experiencing heightened perceptual abilities, heightened psychic abilities, which help us in that connection, so it's like,
Mm.
I think as we evolve, we don't need that in-person physical connection as much, as maybe we used to as humans, which is interesting.
Yeah. And I think also like so many of the first students just paved the way also for us to just come in and be like, boom.
Yeah.
going in and just shooting it, right?
Yeah.
So also a huge thanks to those souls who had to have that dharma of really grinding for us to just come in and just get it.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yeah. Huge appreciations. Gosh, I think that's a beautiful moment to just pause on and just say thank you to everyone out there who's done really big work, for this lineage, for everyone on the planet, who's evolving. Like the work that has happened in this lineage is absolutely incredible, at like just on another level. And a lot of people went through a lot of hardships and a lot of challenges and a lot of illusions to get the knowledge out and to get us to where we are now. And that, like, there's almost no words, that can like express enough gratitude for that, because that's big work.
that's true. I'm having goosebumps right now. It just is so deep. It's
Oh,
beautiful.
I
Yeah.
love that. I
Yeah.
actually, in a podcast episode a while back, I talked about the 3 waves of volunteers, because there's a researcher who's done all of this research on past lives and soul level information that was coming through people. And anyway, apparently there have been like 3 major waves of souls, advanced souls coming into earth to help with this sort of work, and not just in this lineage, like across all spiritual lineages. And so I've thought about that a lot, the first waves. And I'm part of like the second wave of souls. You might be the third wave. You might be in the second or third wave. I don't know. But yeah, it's really special. It's special to think about this like huge effort that's been going on to bring this knowledge back. How do you think about that, like with your life and where you're going with your studies and your work? You know, how are you thinking about this wisdom and this history, of knowledge and practices? Like, how are you thinking about integrating that into your future work? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, yes, I'm right now a master's student in psychology. My After my master's, which I'm gonna hopefully finish this year, I'm gonna train to become a therapist. So I think um that's super interesting, like a very interesting combination because we have the psychology of science, I want to say,
Yeah.
where you're working a lot with the mind in the end of the day, and then you have obviously the soul science that Swami gave, where you're going very deep. And I think that that is a very beautiful combination because also coming back to the blocks a little bit, you can do a lot of soul work and wash a lot of things in the soul, but if your mind keeps pulling back the same illusions, the same blocks, and just doesn't understand in a way, then I think you're not going to be as successful as if you can really combine both the soul work and also with training your mind and um, just shifting that mindset a little bit. So I do hope to beautifully put it together. How exactly it's going to work, I don't know yet. I'm just following the energy right now. Um, but I think it's going to be very, very beautiful.
I love that you're already like thinking about that merging of like the Western psychology with the soul science, the spirituality aspect of ourselves. That feels so needed. That feels like so important for the world to start to make that shift. So I'm excited for you. I think that like it makes a lot of sense that you've been like as a soul put in a position where you can make an impact with that. I think that's so cool. I'm excited for you.
Yeah, and I have been thinking that Swami would say that kind of science and our soul science needs to come together at some point and merge.
Yeah.
And in my studies, I had to be part of 20 hours of just like being subject for different experiments. And I had one experiment where they put electrodes on my head, and well, we were just doing this kind of experiment. And then they were telling me we need to do just a baseline measurement to kind of see what your brain waves are like normally. So then when we do the intervention, we can see the difference, right? So I had to sit in a room for 5 minutes and basically do nothing. So my go-to obviously was, okay, I'll do my personal mantra and just not really thinking about it, just like do my personal mantra going into meditation. And afterwards, she comes into the room and just like looks at me with this big eyes. And she was like, "Oh my God, what were you doing?" And I told her, "I was meditating. Why?" And she said, "Your alpha levels were amazing and your brainwaves were amazing." And that made me realize just how, yeah, we can measure this. We can see this with the tools that we have in science. And I think as a society, where the mind is right now is people want to see science. People
Mhm.
want to see things backed up with science. And I think that we can very well do that with the channels because they work.
Yeah.
So if we're smart about it, we can figure out how we can scientifically back it up. And that just kind of opened my mind to what is possible and what we need to do. Yeah, it's in the end of the day, it's how do you make people believe in it?
Right.
Um,
Right. That's going to be really cool to see where you go with this, and if you're able to um yeah, continue that bridging work in the future, like that study, or at least just seeing your brain waves and what's happening there when you're actually in the meditative state. Oh my gosh, like that is enough to prove it to people, like that is enough to say this is something we should be doing, and it helps the whole system, come into harmony. You'll have to report back in the future and let us know what's happening, and where your work is taking you down that path.
yes, I would be very excited to do that. Yeah.
Um, I wanted to also ask you, since we have a beautiful view of your altar behind you, I want to ask you about your altar and some of the photos that you have present there. I was so taken by them when we got together, and I see Ganesh there on your left,
Yes,
a
that
big,
is true.
beautiful one.
Yes, it's beautiful. I got it at some market when I was still studying, and next to it, well, you don't really see it, but there's a Sri chakra on copper that I drew in
Oh, okay,
Pennaconda.
cool.
So that one's definitely charged.
And why did
And
you draw it on copper? What's the importance of that?
maybe you know a little bit better. From my understanding, what I know is it just amplifies the energy. But I did do the Mula mantra process before that. Maybe that's also
Nice.
interesting to say.
Yeah, yeah. And so
Yeah,
you took it into the fire puja with you to get it charged.
yes, but also just, I mean, I think once you're in Penukana drawing a yantra, I think, and it's like the huge Sri chakra, right, in
Yeah,
Penukanda. So
yeah,
I think, yeah, that was definitely powerful, but you can also draw it at home, obviously, maybe
yes.
on a full moon where you have extra energy. So it's not necessary to do it in India. And I have just my altar. You can't really see Jesus, but he's there. Swami and Baba, obviously the three souls right there, and a very big drawing of Mother Divine, which I got from a student who was in I don't even know how to say it in English, in Bavaria. She
Okay.
has a big center in Bavaria, and she um, had some from a different student who drew them. Sadly, I don't remember her name, but a beautiful soul who drew the Mother Divine, and I have her picture there. And then the all on the left is a Gayatri yantra actually that I drew myself, and I just had a lot of free time, so I also put some charged ash in the paint and everything, and I was just trying to make that one radiate. Another
Nice.
photo of the mom. Yeah.
It does, because when we got on camera, I immediately I was drawn to that photo and the photo of Mother, and
Oh,
yeah, so that's interesting to know that you put the charged ash in the paint. I love that. I think that is such a
yeah.
cool idea and approach to really charge a yantra. Um, that Mother Divine photo behind you, or painting. If anyone out there watching knows who did that, let us know. A reply, or say
I
something in
can
the
figure it
comments.
out and then we can put it in the notes because
Yeah,
actually I want to I don't know, just appreciate the soul
Yeah.
who painted that. So I will
Yeah.
definitely, I will ask the lady where I got it from, and then we can put it in the notes maybe.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah,
We have
it's
permission.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
I love your altar. It's so beautiful and yeah, so radiant. I think it's I think it's just so beautiful to share these like these little personal parts of ourselves, you know, seeing someone's altar, you know, hearing about you drawing the yantras, like it's so nice to just hear about others' personal experiences and what your life is about. What else do you do with your time, Mia? We've talked a lot about process stuff and the block washing and all that stuff. And you said something earlier that struck. You're like, I'm also human, and I think we can get on this path and like get so focused on just all the spiritual work, you know, that we're doing, but we're also human and we have passions and you know things we want to like explore in this world. And so um what's that for you? Like what are you passionate about? What gets you excited about being human?
That's a very good question because I think that has been a very big subject for me because I started when I was 20 with the channels. Now I'm 24 and I'm a student. So my
Yeah.
life was a lot of just like going out and meeting people and just doing student things. And I think that was a very big struggle for me to be like, oh my God, how can I have both? How can I be spiritual, but also sometimes let go and let loose and
Yeah.
um, accept that I am this human student right now and I have this role or whatever you might want to call it. And I had a lot of cryings over feeling guilty. It was a whole process in itself. And I think it's really about following your own heart,
Yeah.
having your own connection with a divine soul. Or, yeah, for me, it really was always Swami, just being in that connection with him and just always kind of checking in on where did I just cross a boundary, maybe how do I feel, what is okay, and just really navigating that on a very personal level. Because in the beginning I was very much comparing myself to one of my friends who's also in the lineage, who is like 2 years older than me, and she has a very different life. She lives with her mom doing only Swami related stuff. So for her, of course, it was very different than me living in a student house and
Yeah.
going out. So I think there was a lot of pressure that I put on myself
Mm,
when I thought I have to be like her, because for me, she was just like this amazing soul and spiritual student.
mm,
And I really was able to learn now. It took me a long time, but I think now I'm more at the point where I just check in with myself and just with my connection to the divine and be like, hey, where is my boundary? What is okay right now? What is not
yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
And I think that has helped me so much to be more in tune with myself.
Mm, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I think it's difficult. Yeah, I think it
yeah,
really, yeah, we have to live in the world and
yeah.
still be divine in a way. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's like
yeah,
we're both. We're human and divine, and it's like even just figuring out like what we're excited about and like what we're passionate about and what feels fun to us in a human body. Like that takes time, you know? Like I didn't know that until in my 30s really. You know, like I had some ideas and I dabbled in a lot of different things, but but I don't think I truly just allowed myself, you know, to figure out like what feels fun and what if I had the ability to choose anything to do with myself and my time right now, like what would I do, you know? And but I love how you bring in that reflection on boundaries. You know, is it healthy fun? Is it good fun? Or is it leaning, you know, in a direction that's going to pull us into to negativity or illusions or whatever? It's like that's yeah, that's an important thing to reflect on, I guess, as we're yeah navigating the human part of the
and
experience.
that's a constant. I think like a constant daily conversation almost that. And I think that's why it ties in the altar, ties in the blocks, because the best thing I think is just to sit at the end of the day and to have that conversation with Swami and just tell him everything that happened and
Yeah,
everything that you're feeling and to really have that open dialogue the whole time with him. And I sometimes lack in that, definitely. So saying that now is like, okay, where am I? Where can I be more present again in that relationship? But I think just being super open about the blocks and about everything that's happening in our life, because we are human and we have blocks, and that's why we're here. So
Yeah,
there's no shame in that. It's just
exactly.
seeing them and communicating that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then just like kind of constantly moving ourselves in the direction that is, you know, a higher version of ourselves, that is, you know, more divine, that's a more a truer expression of who we are. And that's a process. That's like like you said, a daily thing. um can I share one example of something I
I
did
would love
last
that.
year that
Yes.
was like me being totally human? And I had gone like all in on the processes and was, you know, just really focused on that. And I'd been focused, you know, for years on spiritual work. And then, you know, the lineage scooped me up, and, you know, I started doing all that work. And about halfway through the year last year, I was like, you know, I just need to go have some fun. Like I'm being way too serious right now. And I was also working on like connecting with divine feminine power and mother's power, and like really, you know, like tuning into that. And I was like, okay, what would be a way I can go have some fun but also do that? And I was like, I know, I'm going to go to a Beyonce concert. And I'm going to go party at a Beyonce concert and have good clean fun, and use that as this like way to honor the divine feminine and honor the rise of the divine feminine, but also just go have fun and shake, you know, and have some fun and dance. And so anyway, that's what I did last year. That was my big moment of I need to be more human right now.
I love that. How did you feel afterwards? Did you
So
feel
good.
good?
So good.
Yes, because I think sometimes when we're so serious on the processes, which is obviously important,
Yeah.
but I mean, some people was a jokester, and that's not for no reason. Like,
Yeah.
we need to have the fun and the humor to
Yeah.
also just like loosen up a little bit. I think
Yes.
there's a real mechanistic reason why divine souls are often very funny.
Yes. 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 I think too, as you like go farther and farther and farther in your awakening, you start to see through the illusions so much that things become funnier. Like you start to see the joke almost in like what's going on. It's hard, I don't know.
I know what you mean. That's a good place to be in.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a blessing to be in that place. Yeah.
Yeah. What aspects of the process are you working on right now? I'm curious. We haven't talked a ton about like all the process work you've done. Um, I think that's cool to maybe share if you're open to it, so folks know kind of where you're at, and maybe you're inspired, you know, by the process work you've done.
That's interesting because I think, funny enough, that's one of my, I don't know how to say, but I feel very, when I'm in a process, I feel it's so important for me to protect that process and to just be very clear on not sharing about that process
Mhm.
because of how much illusion you can really call into your ongoing process, you know, to really digest something first, to finish it, and then you can share about it. So maybe so much to that, but yeah, I think I would recommend everyone to 100% do the 5 elements, do the womb, go to Penocana, do a power spot. That's so amazing. It changed my life. And just go deeper. I mean, there's so much, right? Like Parama Shiva Yoga and oh my God, Surya Chandra. We can go on and on. There's so many beautiful processes, and they all have their own fragrance. But yeah, I've been a very keen on being private a little bit sometimes. Not to be mysterious or anything, but just really protect and to
Yeah.
understand how does Maya hit in my processes.
Yeah.
Because I had to learn the hard way. I had to be like, blah, 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 and then suddenly be like, why is this not going anymore?
Mm, yeah,
Until
that
I
makes
got the
sense.
knowledge of like, yeah, you don't share sometimes until it's time to share.
Yep. Yep. That's good. That's really good. You're in tune with that. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned maybe we could talk about the power spot for just a moment before we wrap up. We need to wrap up soon, but we haven't really talked about that on the podcast yet. Based on what what's the importance of getting a power spot in Pinaconda? Like, why would someone want that?
First of all, I think my understanding is there's two places where you can do a power spot when you're in our lineage. That's Laytonville in America for people who maybe are American, they can go to India. And number one is Penukonda in India, where there is Swami's ashram. And the importance of a power spot, I mean, that's a very deep, I think we could do a whole podcast on power spots, right? But from my understanding and from my experience is it's huge protection circles and huge constant decharging. So my experience was before I got the power spot, I would have to almost daily decharge one of the elements actively, just because I would feel so, oh my God, like I would just feel I needed so much. And then I think once I got the power spot, I would really notice how that was just almost going on the side.
Yeah.
And of course, still actively decharging because it's very important. And Swami would say the best students are the ones who decharge the most. So that's a huge aspect actually of being in the channels, of balancing. But you can also store your energy in there because also too much positive energy can create an imbalance. And there are some processes that you can only do once you have a power spot, just because you would just be fish food for the illusions if you wouldn't have a power spot. You just need that protection, basically. Um, but just like also Swami said, I think it's very much you just do it and see what it does in your life. And
Yeah.
that's why I love him so much, is because he's not just someone who tells you and you have to just believe him, but it's really the knowledge that you can experience in your own life. Um, but yeah, how do you, what about you with your power spot? How do you feel it impacting?
That's a great question. A huge change. Yeah, absolutely. I think can validate what you're talking about around feeling the protection circles grow, feeling. And for those who are maybe not familiar with the divine lineage terminology, that just means, energetic protection. We're just building energetic protection in our field. And to your point about decharging, I've been getting very, very sensitive to energies over the last year. And um, so it's been an interesting process noticing how the power spots are pulling energy, but also how much, I don't know, how much maybe quicker, if I am in like a focused, like intentional decharging process, just how much quicker it seems that the energy, shifts and settles where it needs to settle. So yeah, um, it's been great having it. It's at some point I maybe will talk a little bit about some other power spot work I've done in Sedona, because I think you can technically create a power spot anywhere, but the divine lineage power spot process that Swami taught, which is one of the most potent ways, like one of the most powerful ways you can very cleanly create a power spot. Yeah, he talked about Pinoconda and Laytonville being those two, like you said. So I've kind of experimented. So like you said, Swami was like, to experiment on yourself, like do it on yourself and see what happens. And I've kind of considered myself like a consciousness explorer, or like consciousness experimenter over the last few years, especially. So I've done some other work with power spots that I'll share at some point, just to share that. It's a little too soon. To your point, when we're still digesting some of the work we've done, it's good to not go too far with how much we talk about. But yeah, I think that's a great recommendation / reflection for people to just remember that can be a huge benefit if you're like a dedicated, serious student. You want to go farther, you want to go all the way. Getting that done is important for sure. Like I know now why I was absolutely guided to go to India when I was, it was to do that because that was really important in the process.
Yeah. Yeah, I can recommend anyone who's listening to this and kind of feels a pull or being like, oh, what? I kind
Yeah.
of, huh? To go check it out and see if you can go to one of the programs where they actually do the power spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think they do it at Guru Purnima every year for sure, which is in
And
July.
Navaratri, I think.
Okay. Navaratri. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Um, I think we probably need to wrap up. Mia, thank you so much for chatting and sharing some of your journey and your story with the audience, with me. I'm really, really grateful to be in this space with you and learn more about you um, and also find like this similarity, in our journeys with being of the generation that came after Swami left Earth. So I'm really grateful to know you and be.
Oh, thank you. Same. I'm very grateful to know you, and I hope that maybe some people found some things that helped them during our chat. That would be nice.
I'm sure they did. It's been funny, like thinking about all these conversations and just how guided they are. It's like I think, yeah, I know, I know. So someone's getting what they need, and yeah, Baba and Swami are working through us in some of these conversations to just, yeah, bring the right info forward at the right time, probably. So we just have to trust, just trust that it's landing the way it's supposed to land. So. Uh,
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you so much for being here, and I just wish you so many blessings on your journey. And I'm excited for the work that you're doing and the studying that you're doing and how that's going to come together in the future to create beautiful change on this planet. You're a powerful soul, Mia.
Oh, thank you so much.
It was so good to be here with you. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you next time in the next episode. Bye for now.